Hey, I'm Jill Riley. You're listening to The Current. And I've got some special guests in the studio. Nate Ruess and Sam Means are here. They are back together again. The Format. Welcome to The Current, you guys.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you guys back. And I'm really, in that sense, you are back. Here you are. And it seemed like it was really a long time coming. I wonder if we could start by you guys kind of making that decision to get back together and reunite and make new music, because as I understand it, it wasn't exactly an easy process once that ball got rolling.
No, I mean, we were a COVID cancellation like many people.
Mm-hmm.
Our cancellation was probably a little less dramatic than most, but COVID cancellation, we'd started thinking about doing shows. We'd announced doing shows. We rehearsed once and we're bound to go play a set of shows, and that was going to be it. We were just going to do these reunion shows and call it a day, just because we felt like I think maybe Dog Problems, one of our albums, had turned 15, and we were like, okay, well, this is cool. This is a good way to just do these shows. Sam and I totally no beef or anything like that. He did say, well, I wish we were doing this with new music, and I was like, I'm done. I'm retired. I'm not writing any more music, and he tried. We both had a standoff about it. But I am
a friendly standoff.
Yeah, friendly standoff.
Yes, but I am almost once I'm like a pit bull. Once I I don't want to talk. That sounds bad. But basically, I'm very tough to get to change my opinion, and the shows got canceled, and I think there was a weird relief about that. Anyways. Because for whatever reason, for me, I just didn't feel ready.
Okay.
Anyways, but then as COVID was kind of happening, I had started playing guitar. As soon as my kids started going to school, then I had nothing to do all day. So I started playing guitar, learning how to play guitar, and I'd started writing songs, parts of songs. And I thought oh man, this would be a great Format album. And so I reached back out to Sam and was sent him some songs and said, what do you think about this? And
I was in.
Okay.
Didn't take much for the pit bull to convince me to make music.
This dude folded everything.
I was like, yes, where have you been? Let's do this.
Well, that's great. And you something caught my attention that you just said, that you learned to play guitar.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, that's just surprising. I had just assumed, obviously you've been playing guitar since a teenager, right?
No, I've always been lazy. I've been reliant on my, yeah, well, it's true. But I've always been reliant on my voice. So I will write songs, but I'll just write them by singing them out.
Oh, wow,
I'll hear a whole song in my head. So a lot of ways that we'd write in the Format back in the day, it'd be different ways. Sometimes people would bring chords and I'll sing on top of the chords. Other times I'll just be I have a whole idea in my head. Now how do I get it out to people who know how to play stuff?
Sure.
And I was like, all right, I've always loved guitar. I should probably learn it. And I don't know if I'm still very, very, very much learning it. In fact, I'm going to my hotel after this to read a book on music theory and stuff like that. However, I've figured it out enough to write an album.
Excellent. Well, Radiohead once had a song, "Anyone Can Play Guitar."
I know.
There you go.
And they were right.
You are listening to The Current in the studio with The Format. Nate Ruess is here. Sam Means is here. So when it was time to take this batch of songs and go into the studio, what was that process like? And if you could talk about getting into the studio and maybe other players that you played with on the record?
Yeah, it came together really quick once it started happening because, like you said, he had already been sort of writing big parts of songs, and we were all just so ready for it. I think it was just right place, right time. And he had asked Brendan O'Brien, who ended up producing it earlier, I guess, I don't know how far back in the year, but at some point in time had asked him if he ever, sort of hypothetically, if he'd ever go to do another record, if Brendan would be down to produce it. And he seemed pretty game. So, I mean, I think we started working on the demos in August, really seriously working on them, August or September.
You have 2024.
I met Brendan by October, and we were in the studio in January, just ready to go. And, And Matt Chamberlain played drums, which was incredible. He brought him in, and the whole experience was just very, very quick, but very awesome.
Very good. Talking with The Format on The Current. So the new record is called Boycott Heaven, and it is dropping in the new year. And with a name like Boycott Heaven, I guess one could almost assume that there's almost a little like pessimism, but I don't hear that in the music. I hear like these like big sort of inspiring sounds. And with the song that we've been playing, Holy Roller, I mean, that's certainly when I hear it, I go, oh yeah, like you can sit around or you can take some action to do something. And to me, that's really inspiring. So I wonder if you could talk about the title of the record and kind of where that came from and if it relates at all to the music.
That's a great question. That I'm still trying to figure out myself.
Okay.
So it's really, it's funny because I think once was on Twitter and something was trending, and as I'm getting older, I can't really see that well. Where are my glasses?
Relatable, yes.
But I was like, Boycott Heaven? What? Like this? That's trending. Everybody's starting to boycott heaven. I'm like, that sounds like a good idea. And then I like squinted a little harder. And I was like, boycott Heineken. But then I was like, well, that's a brilliant name for an album. And so I'd started to kind of think about what that meant conceptually. And I think it changes ever so often for me, but I think it's just kind of with the state of the world today and the state of religion and the way that it's viewed. I think we need to make some changes before we say, okay, this is the next place that we need to be.
Mm-hmm. You are listening to The Current. Nate Ruess and Sam Means are here from The Format. Again, new record is called Boycott Heaven. Not Heineken, but Boycott Heaven. Dropping in the new year. Now, you guys did some reunion shows, and now there's this acoustic tour. So I wonder if you could talk about the decision to do an acoustic tour versus like more of a plugged-in tour? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we back in the day, we played acoustic shows all the time. It was really part of our thing.
Okay.
I think even our first show ever was an acoustic show. So, and you know, most of these songs, especially the older stuff, were written on acoustic guitar. So it's just something that's always translated really well. And this run in particular, we did, you know, Phoenix and LA and New York in the fall, and we're hitting some bigger markets in the spring of next year. But there were these really cool towns that just, because of the proximity to the places we had played, just didn't work out.
Okay.
So we wanted to make sure that we could show a little love to some of those places. So we went to Rochester and Cleveland and here in Minneapolis.
Very good.
And then Tucson, which is we're from Phoenix originally, well, Iowa, but we claim Phoenix over here. And so yeah, it was important to just go back there too, because there's a really beautiful venue that just opened up down there.
Yeah, and I don't want to put a dig to our friends to the south, but I could say Iowa. Just kidding. I'm
and
completely
this is
kidding.
the best time of year to do it too.
I was going to get there. So if anyone from Iowa's listening, we'll be there.
You'll get there.
I'll have to run into 1,700 cousins, but we'll get there.
We'll hit Iowa City for sure.
Or some old classmates. You never know what's going to happen.
Well, I grew up in it's hard. It's only convenient where I'm at is where I'm from. So
Okay.
So I was born in Iowa, but I was raised in Phoenix. So when I'm
Okay.
in Phoenix, I'm from Phoenix. When
Sure.
I'm in Iowa, I'm very proudly from Iowa.
Yeah, understood. You are listening to The Current. You know, part of this tour, when I saw your date at the Turf Club here in St. Paul, I noticed that a portion of the ticket sales were going to charity. And is that part of something that was really like a goal of yours to do with this tour, to make sure that you are doing something to give back as well?
I think it's a goal in general.
Yeah.
Sam and I have both, since the format ended almost 20 years ago, have been very fortunate, I think, in our personal and professional lives. And it's allowed us to now do things like sell tickets basically as low as we can sell them while still finding a way to basically break even,
Yeah.
if you put it that way. Sell merchandise as low as you can possibly sell it. We think that type of stuff is important. And furthermore, now doing these shows, I think food banks are a great way to directly give charity and kind of know where it's going, know that it's going to help somebody like very, very directly. And so that was something that on this tour we just felt like was super important, especially this time of year. But I mean, honestly, always.
Yeah.
But I think people are just a little more cognizant of it this time of year. And it's been phenomenal.
It's been great. And shout out to the venues too for being willing to participate in that with us. And it's just been really special to see. We've heard that they've had to refill the stuff at these shows. So
the
really
donation
cool.
bins,
The
and
donation
even
bins,
and then
yeah.
the money that people have raised.
Oh yeah, we did an auction for a couple tickets, and that like far exceeded any expectations. People were just very, very generous there. So yeah, it's been really, really great.
That's good. Yeah. And, like you were saying, Nate, like let's have this carry over into every day. And I know that during the holiday season, I think it's top of mind for people. And then let's remember July.
Yeah,
like
absolutely. No, 1 trillion %.
Exactly.
It's like, like things don't change. People don't magically have food in July.
Yeah.
And so anything that we can do to help fight food insecurity, or I mean, we just try and be as helpful as possible. And our hope is that we can do things as directly as possible too.
Yeah. You're listening to The Current, the format in the studio. Boycott Heaven is the new record. And you played a couple songs while you were in the studio today. And I wonder if you could talk maybe just a little bit about the song Holy Roller. That's an expression that I have heard before. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to Google this expression because I want to make sure that it is the thing that I think it is. But it's really my takeaway from the song is like you can, wiggle around and pray all day long. If that's what you need to do, great. Whatever floats your boat. But there is this sense that like we are human beings who have free will, and like, what do you do? What are you actually going to do? Which kind of relates to, I mean, even taking an action, like making sure that you're giving back to, communities when you're on tour. But what is that thing everybody's going to do, or like individually?
Yeah, you can't just be reliant on the divine.
Yeah.
And I think it's we're living this life, and my belief is that we're here. There's the only. Sorry, I always do this. I get very emotional, but our goal as human beings is to lighten the load for our brother.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great way of putting it is that, like religion is a fantastic thing for those who choose to use it properly. Mm-hmm. And I again, that doesn't disqualify us from the things that we have to do in this life directly.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming into the Current studio. There's one more song that you recorded that we're going to go into now, Right Where I Belong. It's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It just feels like a love song. And I wonder if you could talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, it's what I feel like it's one of the few love songs on the album. Especially because as I've gotten older and I thought I was like retired from music, I was like, had kids, met my wife, and started kind of looking at the world more outwardly and less inwardly, like all the old songs kind of were, less about like woe is me, and like songs. I'd always written songs like trying to find, it's about like yearning for love, I suppose. And I met my wife, and then I didn't feel as inspired anymore to write those type of songs, and I felt more inspired to look at the world outside of that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't negate kind of how special she is to me. So that song's just about growing up and just being in love.
Well, here's to growing up and being in love. Cheers, you guys. Thank you so much for coming into the studio.
Yeah, thank you.
You are listening to The Current, the format. The new record, Boycott Heaven, is due out January 23rd, the year 2026. Oh my gosh, we're almost in the new year. Nate Ruess and Sam Means, take care, and thank you so much for coming to The Current.
Thank you.
The Current is public media made possible thanks to member support.